So this is the first lesson from myself, Mr. Crucides, a French grammar lesson about the infinitive. The infinitive's a really crucial thing to understand. If you get a full understanding of what the infinitive is, both in French and in English, then this will solve many of the mysteries in the French language. So first of all, what is an infinitive, both in French and in English? The definition of the infinitive, it is the dictionary form of the verb. So what that means is when you look up a verb in the dictionary, the only part of the verb you find is the infinitive. In French, there are three different groups of verbs and they have different infinitive endings. Infinitives in French will always end with er, like jouer, manger, regarder and visiter. They might end in re, vendre, for example, or they might end in ir, finir. So they always end with those letters. The er group is by far the most common group. There are literally thousands and thousands of verbs which have infinitives ending in er. There are not as many that end in re and ir, although they are still fairly common nonetheless. In English, the infinitive is the verb with the word to in front of it. So, to play, to eat, to watch, to visit. And as I said before, it's the dictionary form of the verb. So if you actually want to translate the words to play, then that's great. You just need to go straight to the dictionary and find the verb, and what is written down on the page, jouer, manger, whatever, that will translate your phrase because you wanted to translate to play, to eat. But it gets a bit more complicated if you want to use a verb in another tense, for example. You won't find in the dictionary the French for I play. You will not find in the dictionary the French for you eat. You will only find to play, to eat. So part of the skills in French is being able to understand what you need to do to change an infinitive to a tense, and that's covered in other lessons. But the key thing today is making sure you understand what an infinitive is. So it's the dictionary form of the verb, the only part of a French verb you find in the dictionary. It normally ends with er, ir, well, it always ends in er, re or ir, and it's translated into English as to play, to whatever, basically. There we go. Jouer, to play. Sometimes you can translate it as playing rather than to play. It just depends on what sounds best in English, really. So here are some examples of French infinitives. What do they mean? Manger. Feel free just to press pause while you look at these to work out the answers before I give them away. So manger, to eat, could also be translated as eating. Écouter, to listen, or maybe listening. Regarder, to watch. Visiter, to visit. Acheter, to buy. Danser, to dance. Gagner, to win. Bavarder, to chat. Aller, very common one, to go. Faire, another extremely important one, to do. Prendre, to take. Avoir, really important, to have. Être, extremely important as well, to be. Sortir, to go out. Boire, to drink. Rester, to stay, does not mean to rest, by the way. Voir, to see. Lire, to read. So there's also an opportunity there for you just to build up some vocabulary. They're all very common verbs, so make sure you know what they mean, as well as understanding what an infinitive is. So how do we use the infinitive? Well, we don't always use an infinitive because, as I mentioned before, sometimes you need to break down a verb into a tense, like a present tense, past or future tense. Please feel free to look at my separate lessons on these topics. And sometimes finding the infinitive in the dictionary can be difficult. So here's an example of a French sentence, nous faisons de la natation, and that means literally we do swimming, which might be a better translation, we go swimming. You will not find the word faisons in the dictionary. Why? Because it is not an infinitive. Well, you can see it's not an infinitive because faisons does not end with er, ir or re. It comes from the verb faire. So if you're looking it up in the dictionary, you might get to the FAI section. You won't find, as I said, you won't find faisons, but you'll find faire fairly close to it. So, you know, maybe you can use your dictionary skills to find a verb that's kind of more or less on the same page in the dictionary, but that doesn't always work. For example, here's another one. Ils vont en Espagne. You will not find the word vont in the dictionary, V-O-N-T, because, and in fact, you won't find the infinitive of this verb even on the same page, because ils vont comes from the verb aller, which is, as you know, to go. So that phrase there means they go to Spain. So sometimes it can be a little bit confusing when you don't see the infinitive on the page in front of you. Sometimes you have to do a bit more research. It's all about do you know your verbs or not, really. Uses of the infinitive. So the infinitive is used very, very regularly after many verb phrases. It's used after verbs like j'aime. So j'aime manger, I like eating, or I like to eat. Didn't I say earlier that the English infinitive is the verb with to in front of it? So this makes logical sense. I like to eat. In English, a verb like I like is always followed by an infinitive, although sometimes you might prefer to translate it as I like eating rather than I like to eat. It's also used after j'adore, I love to play, I love playing. So again, same in English, I love plus an infinitive, to play, same in French. So j'aime, j'adore, both followed by the infinitive. Je n'aime pas, well, if j'aime is followed by an infinitive, then so is je n'aime pas, which means I don't like to watch, I don't like watching. Je déteste, I hate to listen. That sounds a bit clumsy in English, so here I probably would sound better to say I hate listening. But again, you could say in English I hate to listen, so even in English I hate can be followed by an infinitive, to listen, but in French it's definitely always followed by an infinitive. So all verbs of liking or hating are followed by a verb in the infinitive form. And here's another one, je préfère, I prefer to visit, I prefer visiting. Je veux, that's the French for I want. Again, that's followed by an infinitive too. Je veux manger, I want to eat. Again, no problems there really, because it doesn't need to be taught to you really, because in English I want is always followed by an infinitive. I want to eat, I want to go, I want to sleep. The verb with to in front of it. So again, in French it's the infinitive as well. Je voudrais, well, je veux means I want. Je voudrais is quite similar, it means I would like. Je voudrais nager, I would like to swim. I would like in English is followed by an infinitive, so it's exactly the same in French too. Je dois, this one doesn't make quite as much sense to us. This means I have to, or I must. Again, followed by an infinitive. Je dois aller, I must go. And this one's not so obvious to us because in English we don't say I must to go, or I have to go. But in French, it's followed by an infinitive. Je peux is I can or I am able to, followed by an infinitive. Je peux danser, I can dance. The French literally say I can to dance. So it's slightly different in English, just like with the previous one, je dois. On peut, which is a very common expression, literally means one can, or probably a better translation is you can. On peut manger, you can eat. Again, the French say you can to eat. The future tense, je vais, this is a really, really crucial one. I've got a lesson on the future tense as a separate video. Again, je vais followed by an infinitive. This is exactly the same as English as well. Je vais means I go or I am going. So here, je vais jouer, I am going to play. Again, in English, I am going is followed by the infinitive of the verb with to in front of it. So I am going to play, I am going to swim. So in English it uses an infinitive. It's exactly the same as French too. So je vais will always be followed by a verb ending with er, ir or re, a French infinitive. So here are some infinitives in action. Probably a good idea just to press pause very quickly, work through these answers before I give them away. J'aime gagner, I like to eat. Je déteste acheter, I hate buying, I hate to buy. I hate buying, sounds better, doesn't it? Je préfère faire, I prefer doing, I prefer to do. J'adore voir, I love to see, I love seeing. Je n'aime pas nager, I don't like swimming. Je vais regarder, I'm going to watch. On peut faire, you can do. Il faut aller, one must go. Actually, I don't think I mentioned that one before. Il faut means one must, always followed by an infinitive. Je veux écouter, I want to listen. Je peux bavarder, I can chat. Je voudrais habiter, I would like to live. and je dois danser, I must dance or I have to dance. So, basically in French, if you have two verbs together, verb 1 might be a verb of liking, or it might be the verb can or have to. Verb 2, whatever verb 1 is, generally verb 2, the verb that comes immediately after it is an infinitive, as you can see in all those examples there. The first verb is not an infinitive, as the M in j'aime, the déteste in je déteste, they are not infinitives, but immediately after that verb is a second verb followed by, is a second verb which is in the infinitive form. So verb 1, not an infinitive, but verb 2 is pretty much always an infinitive. Here are some for you to think about for going from English into French. So again, why not press pause, scribble these down on a bit of paper and see if you've got them right. I like doing, I like to do, j'aime faire. I hate visiting, je déteste visiter. I don't like reading, je n'aime pas lire. I prefer playing, je préfère jouer. I love eating, I love to eat, j'adore manger. You can drink, on peut boire. I have to go, je dois aller. You must listen, tu dois écouter. Or maybe il faut écouter. There we go, both. Either are fine. I want to go, je veux aller. I would like to do, je voudrais faire. I can play, je peux jouer. And I am going to watch, je vais regarder. There we go. So the final word every time is an infinitive because the verb before it is either a verb of liking or not liking or hating or preferring, or it's the verb can, have to, want, or it's the future tense with I am going. So a quick recap. Infinitives are the only verb forms that you find in a dictionary. They end in ER, RE and IR. In English they're translated as the verb with the word to in front of it, to go, to eat, to run, to jump. And they're commonly used, and you'll see them after verbs of liking or disliking. Modal verbs are the verbs want, can or must, and after parts of the verb aller, which is the future tense. Je vais jouer, I'm going to play, for example. As I said, if you have two verbs side by side, verb 1 will not be an infinitive, verb 2 will be an infinitive, and verb 1 could be a verb of liking or disliking, verb 1 could be a modal verb, can, must or want, verb 1 could be the part of the verb aller, but verb 2 will always be an infinitive. Thank you very much.